Well, hello there, motherfuckers, and welcome to your review of Pokemon Detective Pikachu. Now, I knew this movie was going to be good, but I gotta say, I was even a little bit surprised at the high quality of this movie. It was really good. This type of movie would have not been possible, back in 1998, 1999. And this film drew a lot of inspiration from a lot of different places. Definitely Pokemon, the first movie. I'm even gonna say that it even drew inspiration from two GameCube games from the Ore series, Pokemon Coliseum and Pokemon Gale of Darkness. We're going to talk about that here in this review. So I went in blind pretty much. The only time I really talked about this movie on this channel was in a few different places. I talked about it for the initial trailer reaction. There was some other trailers. But, I had a very positive reaction. When I first saw it, I saw the CGI. I said, this looks very promising. Many people knocked it. I couldn't believe that people actually thought that trailer did not look good, that they did not get excited for it. Especially from Pokemon fans. And I also talked about it during the Sonic the Hedgehog trailer reaction. I said, thank God that they at least got it right with this movie, which made me look forward to even more, because if Sonic the Hedgehog is going to suck, at least my childhood will, be, not forever ruined, because at least we'll get one good video game movie. So even if Sonic, lives up to the expectation of it being absolutely horrible, at least we'll have Detective Pikachu to fall back on. And, I went in blind to this. I didn't know a lot about the plot, and thank God I didn't, because I was really happy with the way this all turned out. I mean, you already see, I was very, very pleased by this one, and I'm going to go out on a limb. This is the greatest video game movie of all time, which is a title that was held, an accolade that was held by a movie from over 20 years ago. It was the first Mortal Kombat movie. And I mean that because, really, tell me what video game movie was, good. Some people will say, some of the Resident Evil movies. I mean, come on, guys. What was truly a great video game movie? That one, mostly for nostalgia. And I mean, I think it's a pretty good action movie. But Detective Pikachu was the first time a movie came along, and not only was it visually stunning, not only did it tell a great story, it was a well-crafted story, it was a well-told story. Obviously, they took a lot of time with this movie. They really made sure that it hit all the right notes. They got their fan service in there, but they didn't compromise, the quality of the movie by just solely making it fan service, and that's all it's there for. You notice they didn't go back and, try to get any, characters from the game or characters from the TV show. No, they had respect for the source material, but they had their own story in mind, and I thought that it was really good. Even if it is taken from a few of the games, which I like. They picked a little bit here, and they picked a little there, and we're going to talk about it. So basically the premise of this movie, and if, you're not aware, turn the video off, go watch the movie, and then come back, because there's going to be a lot of spoilers here. I think that's really the only way that I could ever do a good review, is I have to spoil it, because there's certain things that I have to say and I can't hold back, so I have to talk about it as a whole, because certain things are, needed to really expand upon the quality of the movie. So the first thing we get a load of in this film is fucking Mewtwo. Mewtwo's right there from the start. Before we see Pikachu, before we see any of the other Pokemon, this is the first Pokemon that we get to see. And that's amazing. Because it brings me back to almost exactly, not exact, because I believe it was released in September, but, almost 20 years ago, when we saw Pokemon the first movie, and we see Mewtwo like very menacing, and a car goes careening off a roadway, and we're like, oh, I was like, oh shit, we're starting off hot here. Then we get introduced to Tim, and it's played by Justice Smith, and he's like working for an insurance company, and we see he's with a friend trying to catch a Cubone in the very comedic scene, and then he gets some bad news about his father dying in that same car crash that we saw at the beginning of the movie. And then we learn, that he was a detective and everything, and one thing leads to another, and we see Detective Pikachu. He seeks out Tim here, and the adventure pretty much starts as we find out that that his father may not be dead. There's mysterious things at work, including a very mysterious substance that seems to make Pokemon go fucking apeshit. And this movie is really well told, because everything that you think you know at the beginning of the movie is completely changed, and that's where the detective part comes in. It's a very, very well told mystery. And as Tim and Pikachu are on the trail, and by the way, speaking of Pikachu, Ryan Reynolds did an amazing job in this film. He did a knockout job. I mean, it's really funny, really humorous, a lot of good quips. People kept joking about it is Deadpool. And that's because, I think Ryan Reynolds is kind of playing himself. He's a very witty guy, so it's not pretty much Deadpool. It's mostly Ryan Reynolds, that we're hearing here. And a lot of good lines, a lot of good funny scenarios. I really liked the scene where they're interrogating Mr. Mime. I thought that was really well told. Along the trail, Tim runs into another girl played by Catherine Newton, and this is Lucy. And I got like a lot of Misty vibes, from her. Just something about her. As far as Justice Smith, the Tim character, I couldn't really, place him with any other character in the whole entire, Pokemon franchise. But for Lucy, I was getting some Misty vibes. I don't know what that was all about, but I just kind of saw, she's just kind of a feisty girl. It's a decent performance. She's kind of like awkward, humorous in her own way. Both did an adequate job. I mean, it's really Ryan Reynolds playing the whole show, but I got, Justice Smith did a decent job. He's just like there to help move the story along, but Ryan Reynolds is really like driving it. He did what he had to do in this film, Justice Smith, but I kind of feel like you really could have had anyone in that role, but for what he did, he did a decent job. There was no overacting or anything, no over exaggeration or crazy facial expressions. Everyone pretty much acted pretty natural. Like, there's fucking crazy creatures around and people are acting like this is natural, as they should, because they're like living in a society that that's been like this for many a year. So it makes more sense than you would really think. And everyone did a pretty good job for what it was. And I had heard that they shot this movie on film as opposed to digital to make everything blend in, and I guess if that's what made this movie look as good as it did, I would say to keep on doing that. Take some tips from director Rob Letterman and keep on shooting movies on film, because everything just looks spot on. There's even a scene where Justice Smith is holding Pikachu. He's holding this CGI model, and it looks good. Like, it looks like he's actually holding something. And I don't know, what was done, if maybe they mixed in some type of additional effects there to make it look more realistic. But if that technique of doing this movie on film made it look that good, then they really should keep that same idea going through all, not just future Pokemon movies, which there is a sequel that's already planned, but they should do that for all the other CGI based movies that they're going to put out, because this was good quality and it looked really good. As far as how the story unfolds, so that mysterious substance that I mentioned before is called R. It makes all the Pokemon go fucking crazy, and we see that there's 8-Palm in the beginning, the monkey-like Pokemon, and they start attacking Tim. Pikachu, for some reason, I thought it was like a little bit weird that he wasn't using any of his like electric attacks, but then we find out because he's lost his memory, he doesn't even remember how to attack. And then they have this really great scene where it's like underground, and in the city that they're in, they're not allowed to do Pokemon battles. So it's like a whole underground thing, and he comes like face to face with the Charizard, and like all he could do is just try to evade. Like, that looked awesome, and then he gets like a whiff of the R, and Charizard just goes crazy, and then it gets out of control, and the R goes everywhere, and everyone's Pokemon, that little underground stadium, just goes nuts. So there was a lot of great scenes in this film, and the R was very like reminiscent of the aura for the Shadow Pokemon that were seen in the GameCube games, Gale of Darkness and Coliseum. So that for me was like a throwback. I think Rob Letterman or someone who helped write the screenplay probably played those games, because to have that, like, where the Pokemon are going like crazy and being super aggressive, I mean, it's a different type of storyline. In those games, it was supposed to be that the Cypher, which was the scientists that did the experiments on the Pokemon to make them act in that way. Here, it's a corporation called Clifford Enterprises that we don't know right away. We don't know where it came from. And then they do this excellent thing where Bill Nighy, who ends up being the big villain at the end, who's like responsible for all this and the experiments that were done to Mewtwo, because we think in the beginning that Mewtwo is a bad guy, that he's evil, that he killed this kid's dad, or ran him off the road at least. We don't know as the story's being told. And then we see that he's got like an asshole son, and the son is, he looks like a bad guy, and he's even acting bad. And then we find at the end that it's a Ditto. that's actually, it's, you got to see how it plays out, because me just telling it to you, it sounds a bit crazy, and I see that people are even confused. But if you understand like the games and the anime, I don't think it's really necessary, because I think they explained it pretty well. But it sounds probably weird me trying to explain a Pokemon storyline to you. But this was like, I could see this being, in an anime episode, and definitely like a storyline from the game. Like I said, they drew the inspiration. You saw a little bit of, Mewtwo coming out of the chamber, all hooked up, kind of like in Pokemon, the first movie. Definitely, that was first and foremost. Before I even thought of the GameCube games, I thought of that right away, and that was definitely intentional. And then at the end, we find out that the whole big plot with the, the R gas and everything, what it's supposed to be, is supposed to be a way of transferring people's minds into the bodies of Pokemon. And I think this is probably where people were just like, whoa, like it blew their minds, and they could not understand. I don't know why people were so like taken aback by that. I mean, this is pretty tame compared to some of the other sci-fi and storylines we've seen, but like, it's really well done when you see it. Bill Nighy is actually a really evil guy, and his body is crippled. He's confined to a wheelchair, so he sends his mind into the body of Mewtwo. And then you see like everybody in the city, like all the inhabitants, all their minds get switched into the Pokemon. I thought that was really good. Like, you have to think, like, they had to find out a fitting storyline, you know, a great mystery to tell. You know, they're calling it Detective Pikachu. And I think that they lived up to the title of the movie. They told it, and in the end, there's a good finale. And the big finale with Pikachu versus this mind-controlled Mewtwo. I thought it was excellent. They played it out really well. It's an epic end to the movie. And I was, like, really satisfied. Like, when the credits rolled, I was like, damn, this was really satisfying. I mean, you know, really, you talk about, like, a beginning, a middle, and end. Like, as far as, like, 3 acts, like, it's really well told. It's not super obvious the way how they make it. Like, that little swerve with the Ditto. And, you know, you think at the beginning, like, that this Howard Clifford guy, the one who's doing the whole scheme, you think it's the son, but it's actually the son. It's not really him, it's a Ditto. It's pretty... it's pretty well told. Like I said, like, I didn't expect this. I thought that was just a name, like Detective Pikachu. That they, you know, they were just gonna do something cute, like there was just gonna be a boy finding his father. That's why I said, like, you know, I didn't know what to think as far as the story, but they really did, like, have a well-written, like, cinematic story to tell here. It wasn't just like, oh, here's a bunch of Pokemon, and that, you know, they could have went that route and just did something silly, but, you know, they decided to have a bit of an edge to this story, you know, something, you know, that they could tell and it would span for the whole movie. And, you know, to have a nice little classic swerve in there, you know, like, really like telling like a mystery story. And that was good. That was more than I could have really hoped for. And, you know, it goes without saying, a definite recommendation. The number of Pokemon they put in here was tremendous fan service. But, you know, they didn't just, like, show it for the hell of it. You know, they didn't just say, like, oh, here's a bunch of Pokemon, and, you know, that's all we're going to show you. When they incorporate it, they really do it. Like, I wasn't very familiar with this Pokemon, to tell you the truth, but there's, the Pokemon, I don't even remember what generation he's from, is Tortelli. You know, the tortoise Pokemon that has like fucking forest on its back. Like, they think that they're in a forest as they're trying to infiltrate this Pokemon research lab when they were working on Mewtwo and doing all the experiments. They're like running through this forest, and all of a sudden, like, the ground starts crumbling. It's going sideways and shit. And I was like, wow, not only did this look visually good, but then we find out at the end of the scene that they're actually on top of these giant Pokemon. It was, I don't know how the hell they got so big. I guess maybe they did experiments on them that made them grow to these massive sizes. But I was like, the way how they incorporated them, it just, like, wasn't there just for fan service. They did it because it was a fun way of telling the story. You know, giving you these Pokemon so you could see them, because it is a fucking Pokemon movie, so you'd expect there to be a lot of your favorites in there. But they chose the right kinds, and there's a wide variety, like, spanning many different generations. But they're all incorporated well. They actually look like they're really there. It doesn't look like they're just plastered onto your screen as computer-generated images. They're well integrated. I talked about the technique that Rob Letterman used. Rob Letterman's been on some films. You know, once again, like, I don't really understand why it's always like this. But I would say, you know, definitely, without a doubt, you're doing another Pokemon movie, put him on it. You know, I would even say go so far as, man, you know, Paramount should probably get this guy to go direct the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. I know the guy is, you know, working on Sonic, is trying to rectify that mess, but I mean, this guy got it right the first time. And I jotted down some of his credentials. I didn't even know this going into it. He's worked on Shark Tale, which is a movie that's, you know, now it's like 15 years old, almost exactly. That was the voice of Will Smith. That was a DreamWorks movie. Another DreamWorks movie, Monsters vs. Aliens. Goosebumps, was another one that I did not see that I heard was decent. So, you know, he's worked on some popular films, but, like, not a lot of credits. Like, I just named about, like, 3 out of the 5 movies he's actually directed. But he seemed very passionate about Pokemon. Like, he really understood Pokemon. Like, and, you know, I'm, like, also saying Pokemon. I'm not even too sure about my pronunciation. But it really brought me back to the anime of, like, and just, like, people across the internet. Like, Pokemon is said so many different ways in this movie. As far as I know, it's really supposed to be pronounced Pokemon because the accent mark above the E is pronounced as A. You know, you say it as the letter A. Most people say Pokemon, and then there's also Pokemon, which is actually how the character, at least in the English dub, used to say it in the first couple of seasons of the anime. He says Pokemon. I think sometimes I might slip and say Pokemon. A lot of people on YouTube also say Pokemon. Ryan Reynolds was saying, I think Pokemon. I actually don't know. Sometimes it's like when people say it, it's like a word. It's a name that's been spoken so many times you don't even think about when. I just thought it was kind of humorous that people were saying it so many different ways in this movie. Doesn't really matter anymore. It just, you know, thank God when it came to the U.S., people did not that you know, Game Freak or whoever or you know, Nintendo decided not to call it Pocket Monsters. Otherwise, we probably would have had 1,000 Pocket Pool, Pocket Monster jokes, you know. And thank God. I mean that they decided to change. I thought that was just something interesting, to say. But yeah, without a doubt, the greatest video game movie of all time. Unless they can completely turn it around with Sonic the Hedgehog, which, you know, I've got my reservations about that, to say the very fucking least. I think you know that after how many videos I've done on it. So, well done. Ryan Reynolds was great. Well told story. Like the mystery. They did a really good job with this one. And it goes without saying. I mean, is there really any contest? Can really anyone say that this is not the greatest video game movie of all time? Like, I don't know. I guess there's some people who didn't enjoy it. I'm gonna say I really haven't seen too much. You know, on Rotten Tomatoes, you've got like 63% from the critics. That's to be expected. Like, you really think that they're gonna like love this type of movie? They probably didn't even get it. I don't think you need to play the games or see the anime to really understand it. But like, there's like certain scenes, like when you know, Ryan Reynolds is saying that, you know, Psyduck, like when his headaches get really bad, he's going to explode. But he doesn't like really explode like a bomb, you know. It explodes because he's like using psychic and he just propels everybody away. And you see that in the scene when they're trying to escape the lab. And he like uses it on the Pokemon Greninja that are following them. They're like crazed Greninja that have like got a whiff of the R gas. And you know, so there's like a time like you're building up to it. You know what Psyduck is gonna do when the migraine, you know, gets to its peak. But everyone else is probably like, what the fuck is he talking about? Like, is this duck just gonna explode? Like, is there gonna be like his bill is gonna be like disembodied? Like, he's gonna have an arm over there, and like, it's like, no. And you know, like in the build up, I really like the build up to Pikachu using his electric attack because he forgets how to use it. So when he really does it, like towards the end of the movie, like there's great build to it. So they did a lot of little clever touches, I have to say. Like they knew when to do this and they knew when to do that and they knew when to hold off of it. You know, even like the reveal up to Pikachu it was classic. It was kind of like, you know, they waited a little bit longer than even say something like the first Ninja Turtle movie. You know, in 1990, you know, when they waited, they show the human characters, they show them in the shadows before they do a full body approach. You know, it's a full body reveal. So it kind of harkened back to that. And I'm so happy that, you know, it got something that I truly, you know, loved from my childhood and have loved as an adult finally make it to the silver screen. you know, it's nice because, you know, we'd even say like, okay, well, at least we have the games and we have the anime, you know, to keep our memories and our love for the series alive. But you know, it's nice to say that we could say that a good movie was released for a Nintendo game, for a video game that we love. And I couldn't be any more ecstatic about that. So, you know, hopefully Sonic, I could at least say maybe it's decent when it comes out later this year, but I don't know. I'm just, forget about fucking Sonic for right now. I'm just happy that we got a fitting Pokemon movie that was well done, with a well-told story, well acted, wasn't cheesy, wasn't corny, wasn't dumb, wasn't stupid, wasn't, you know, hoard out, you know, just to make a quick buck. Like, it was actually a satisfying film that I probably am going to see again very soon. And guys, if you enjoyed, what did you think about the movie? Let me know. I'll be very interested to know. Like, was there anyone who's like a big Pokemon fan that really disliked this movie, that just, you know, it just didn't do it for them? Or, you know, maybe you didn't like the way the Pokemon looked. Like, maybe you didn't like the detailing. Maybe you didn't think it looked realistic. Let me know down in the comments. I'd be very interested to know. And guys, if you haven't already, subscribe. Click the bell so you get all the notifications when I make all my new videos. I've been really enjoying, you know, making videos on this channel lately. You know, I've stopped making wrestling videos that were making me miserable watching that terrible product. So I'm happy that I'm finally, like, talking about movies and games and some other great stuff, you know, that I actually enjoy, you know. So, guys, you know, I'm really enjoying it lately. So I want you to all enjoy it along with me. Join me on the ride. And, you know, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.